It has emerged that Abdelhamid Abaaoud, suspected of masterminding the Paris terrorist attacks, was killed in yesterday's 7-hour police raid in Saint-Denis. With me to discuss this latest dramatic development is once again Sam Jones, the FT Security and Defense editor. Sam, this is a very big breakthrough, the fact that Abaaoud is actually dead. And he had gone to Syria, returned to Europe. How significant do you think this is? And particularly the fact that he's been able to come in and out of Europe.
It's significant, firstly, in that obviously they've got their man. It's taken us quite a while to get to this point. So since the raid began in Saint-Denis on Wednesday, in the small hours of the morning, it went on for 7 hours. And even after it ended, there's been a whole lengthy process by which forensic experts have had to identify Mr. Abaaoud's remains. He is supposed to be, as you said, Roula, the mastermind of this attack. So his death is significant in that clearly it stops any risk of further attacks, and I suppose there's a sense of closure to it all. But really there's a bigger picture here about what he represented and who he was. This is a young man. This is not someone whose experience of war and of
he was
combat
about
operations,
26, 28,
right, exactly,
yeah.
28, is relatively limited. He'd only first gone to Syria to fight with ISIS in early 2014. So really this speaks to the incredible speed with which people are being radicalized and gaining the skills necessary to conduct terror attacks in Europe. When you think back to the threat that Al-Qaeda posed and the idea that was widely held in counterterrorism circles that Al-Qaeda stemmed from the initial war in Afghanistan with the Soviets way back in the 80s, and then there was a sort of 10-year gestation period before that threat came back to haunt the rest of the world and the West. This has happened in 2 years, in 3 years perhaps. So it's really quite a significant moment in that sense.
There's another really fascinating development, something we wrote about on ft.com this morning, that the Belgian government has issued a diplomatic protest to France, saying that they're being unfairly blamed for incubating terrorism in parts of Belgium. Do you think this is a real concern? Is this the main issue right now, Belgium?
Well, that's right. All things do seem to lead back to Belgium at the moment. It's in particular this Brussels suburb, Molenbeek, where Mr. Abaaoud certainly spent time, and several other plots have been linked back to there in the past. The Belgians have insisted that they are doing what they can in terms of fighting terrorism, that they do have a handle on the number of their own citizens that have gone and fought abroad, and that it's unfair to single them out. But there is quite a lot of disquiet at the moment about a very patchy intelligence picture across Europe overall. And
are there
clearly,
serious intelligence weaknesses in Belgium when you compare to France or to the UK?
You have to imagine so, in the sense that this guy, Mr. Abaaoud, has been moving between Syria and Europe with relative ease, it seems, in spite of being a wanted man. He's been wanted for months now, even before this attack. And so you have to ask how he did that and how he was able to connect these people together in Belgium before they came to Paris to mount the attacks on Friday. There are people in the intelligence community that sort of say, well, hang on, something is wrong here in Europe. We've got a patchy picture. We're not getting the whole of it. And clearly there are some agencies that are very well resourced. The French are one of them. Britain clearly spends a great deal of money on counterterrorism and intelligence work. But there are others that really are not spending so much.
Finally, Sam, and very quickly, the French Prime Minister today warned of possible chemical attacks. Is this alarmist? Is there a real threat of chemical attacks?
So this was an interesting development from a piece of news yesterday where the French government quietly authorised the distribution of atropine to hospitals around the country. Atropine is a chemical used to treat nerve gas attacks. This is very unusual. There is no, so far, clear evidence that ISIS has chemical weapons, certainly not the ability to bring them into Europe. So far, when this has been raised in the past, intelligence officials have said they don't believe the group has the capability. All the same, even as a precautionary measure, it certainly raised eyebrows.
Thank you, Sam. And for the latest, please turn to ft.com.